Hello and welcome to another episode of the Interwoven podcast from The Weave. I'm Adam Roxby and I'm really excited to share this episode with you. This time around I had the opportunity to talk to Toby Freeman from the Robin Cancer Trust. We covered a range of issues associated with running a charity, so whatever your line of business, I know you'll find something in this conversation that will be useful to you or will resonate with you. So let's get going with my conversation with Toby Freeman from the Robin Cancer Trust. So obviously I want to say thank you very much to Toby Freeman from the Robin Cancer Trust for this conversation. Now, for those of you who don't know the Robin Cancer Trust, can we just start by giving a brief introduction as to what it is you do and how you got to be in the position of leading a charity?
Of course. So the Robin Cancer Trust is set up to deliver germ cell cancer awareness, education and support all across the country. I'm based in Colchester. We work heavily across North East Essex, but we try and digitize and expand our services in a way that they are accessible to everyone. So germ cell cancer effectively is cancer of the reproductive cells. So we focus heavily on testicular and ovarian cancers. We go into schools, colleges, universities, deliver talks. We work with local hospitals to deliver free cancer support packs to anyone going through this type of cancer. And we raise awareness by doing sometimes ridiculous PR stunts, but very often just getting out in the community and handing out this life-saving awareness information. I came into doing this because I lost my brother Robin, who is our namesake, to a rare form of testicular cancer when he was just 24 and I was 22. Me and the family realised there was a lack of information out there about this type of cancer and that young people could get it, and that we really want to raise awareness, make people's symptoms aware, tell them to go to the doctors, break down that stigma. And it all started in a bar in Colchester that no longer exists, sadly. That's how long we've been going. And we've just been growing ever steadily since, which is very, very exciting. Started about Rob, and now it's about everyone else that we save, which is a really nice thing for us as a charity.
And obviously, I suppose people are aware of testicular cancer. Is there a challenge for you to try and differentiate between that cancer, or is it trying to explain that there is more than one type of testicular cancer?
My brother had a rare form, which was extragonadal, which basically meant he had testicular cancer outside of his testicles. So he didn't ever have what you call a primary tumour in the testicles. His was actually in his chest. So a rogue cell never made its way down from when he was a fetus, and after 23 years just started replicating and became this huge tumour in his chest. So that's why we cover the germ cell, because that was what it was. We were told as a family, Rob had a germ cell cancer. It accounts for about 96% of all testicular cancers. Signs and symptoms are the same if you've got something wrong with your testicles. It accounts for a small fraction of ovarian, but again, the signs and symptoms are the same, and it tends to affect younger people. So you can also get them outside of the reproductive organs, but we just wanted to focus on these, primarily the two most common forms of germ cell cancer, the testicular and the ovarian, and really hit that younger audience because they're life lessons, right? We can go into a school, teach a 16-year-old, and all the way up through their life, they'll know that life-saving information. And that for us is really, really important because they could get it at a younger age, but if they don't, they know that information for when it may be needed later in life too.
And what are sort of the things that you're telling these people when you're going into the schools? How is it easy to spot? Is it a very complicated process?
So usually, I'm just in my casuals today, but usually if we were in a school, I'd have a giant pair of testicles around my head. So a big thing for us is like breaking down all of this information with humor. We found, especially with the younger people, breaking down that barrier. If you can make them laugh, you can make them listen. So this works with the ovarian side as well. We've got these giant signs, you flip them over, it's got big, angry, sweary ovaries on it. And we've got this campaign called Talking Bollocks and Not Overreacting. So pun heavy, really big, brash, and break down that stigma. And then we tell people, right, this is why I'm here. Or if it's one of our ambassadors, they might have been affected by it. If it's one of our staff, we actually have an amazing community engagement manager called Darren, who is a testicular cancer survivor who goes into schools. So we have a really powerful message behind what we're doing. And then quite simply, it is checking yourself once a month if you're a guy, being symptoms aware if you're a girl, and then listening to your body, knowing what's normal for you, knowing the signs and symptoms, and then going to the doctor straight away. So for us, it's really about that stigma, that embarrassment, breaking that down so that people feel really comfortable with it, and then just delivering this very simple: check yourself, listen to your body, go to your doctor. That's our job in, I'm about to say a terrible testicle pun. That's our job in a nutshell.
No, I keep the puns coming. I love it. Many people's reaction or first thoughts when something terrible happens to them in their personal life is to seek a way of turning that into something meaningful. And many people do start charities and organizations. Do you find that that's a difficult thing? But if there's so many different organizations about different things having to compete with other charities who are doing just as much a good thing, do people become sort of charity fatigued almost?
Yeah, I suppose there's two ways of looking at the world, isn't there? There's I need to get my slice of the pie, or there's enough slices of the pie to go around. Abundance mindset, I suppose they call it, don't they? And I try and think of it like that. No cause is better than the other cause. Your audience is just the people that resonate with. We work in the cancer community. There's 1 in 2 of us is going to get cancer in our lifetime. So our cause inherently, unfortunately, resonates with a lot of people. So we've always just found that it's about, as with anything, you find your niche, you find your tribe, you find those people that you resonate with, and then you create that community. And that's, I suppose, what all charities are for. Our biggest dream is to work ourselves out of a job. If there was a cure for cancer, we'd all be very happy. No one wants to be doing this. I know that's not the same for every charity, and that's obviously probably not a reality with there being over 200 different types of cancer. They're all being very unique. But we want to work ourselves out of a job. We want to create a world in which we no longer have to exist, which is quite a unique proposition, as in, if you're talking in business terms, right? We don't want to exist. We're just working because there is a need. But yeah, you do find a lot of charities are founder led because those people have been affected by something. But then I suppose in the business world, people find a problem to solve, and that is why they exist, or they become very good at something, and that's why they exist, I suppose, is the difference. But we found a problem in the world, and we needed to exist because of that. We just happened to do it in a non-profit way rather than a for-profit way.
And do you find that that sort of passion and the personal connection is essential for what you're doing?
That's a good question. I would say for me, it's been my biggest driver. But there are a lot of amazing people in the world that can resonate with lots of different causes. And I suppose for me, it's been a catharsis. It got me through that really intense grief period. It's my purpose. I feel really driven by it. Even, we are coming up to 13 years on from losing Rob, and it's still something that gets me out of bed, drives it forward. At the moment, I still feel like I'm the right person for the job, but I'm also aware of founders syndrome. There is a point in a charity's life where the founder has to step back and go, am I the right person for this? Am I getting in my team's way? Am I pigeonholed in my views? I think being conscious of that really helps. I have an amazing board of trustees. So for anyone that's not familiar with charities, they're effectively like a board of directors that sit above me. They all give their time for free. They're absolutely incredible. A depth and breadth of knowledge there. So they help with all of this sounding board that I get to use. So that's something that I'm very privileged in, that a lot of entrepreneurs don't have. You do have to find your own way. I can lean on them, and I try and hire wisely, go, what am I terrible at? What am I good at? What am I bad at? How can I get people around me who are going to tell me when I'm being pigeonholed and be vocal when I'm being a bit of stubborn in my ways? I think being conscious of that is really important. But there are lots of amazing people that have come out the corporate sector that have just been affected by things and want to give back, or at a different time of their life. We find that when we're out hiring, we put our values, our mission, our vision at the forefront of that. And again, a lot of people have been affected by cancer, but a lot of people just find that they want to give something back. And those individuals are absolutely amazing in their own right, because they want to work in a sector where they probably aren't going to make as much money, but they are going to have a much bigger social impact. And I suppose that's what the charity sector is built upon.
And what do you think you'd be doing if you weren't doing this? Obviously, the tragedy that befell you has hijacked your life in some way.
Yeah, that's, I suppose, a difficult question to answer, isn't it? Because it's such a 180. Before my brother was diagnosed, I was working in a bar during the year that he was diagnosed. I was managing 2 bars, and that perhaps wasn't a sustainable and healthy lifestyle. So I think back to those days, and I think, what's the old adage? If you're not embarrassed by who you were 10 years ago, you're not doing it right. I've grown a lot because of what I've been through, but I suppose experience breeds empathy. It breeds purpose sometimes, thankfully, in my position. So who knows who I would be? All I can say is it sounds strange, but I'm grateful for what happened, because of the person I am today is drawn upon that. I can't affect what happened. I can only be grateful for what I am and what I know and what that has brought to my life ever since. So it's a difficult one to answer.
I appreciate that. And as we've mentioned, obviously, there's lots of different cancers and lots of different ways in which people have tried to express their purpose by creating charities. How have you managed to sort of differentiate yourselves and try and help you find that tribe? I remember seeing your video where you managed to send a pair of testicles up into space, which is no mean feat. Is that the sort of thing that you find is the most helpful?
So something we've always been very conscious of is we are aiming at a younger audience. A lot of charities, and again, there's no right or wrong answer here. All these amazing charities support a lot of people in brilliant ways. But I think in the medical charity field, sometimes it can feel a bit medicinal. And we wanted to really work out a way to connect with younger people that we weren't seeing out there. Again, we were trying to fix a problem that we knew existed in the world, which was, how do you engage young people with cancer awareness? Young people feel invincible. Young people don't want to hear from someone talking to them about health problems. They want to enjoy life and have fun. So we're like, well, that's our in. So we worked really hard from day dot on making sure our branding and our messaging will connect with that audience. And we hear this a lot from our community, from, again, people that are applying for jobs. They're like, well, you just stand out. It's your infographics, it's your tone, it's everything. Big, bright colors, bold, brash, lots of humor. We don't shy away from difficult conversations. We don't mute anything. We'll just tell, our blogs, people, they just get to write whatever they want. It's absolutely fine. It's your story. We've got a podcast series launching this year. We're not vetting anything. It's just, this is your story. This is your platform. Say what you want. So we found our tribe just by connecting with, I think, a audience potentially felt a bit disengaged with that medical information. Like I say, a lot of humor, and we're consistent with it, whether we're in an event, whether we're in a school talk, or whether we're online, you get the same sort of messaging. And I think that real fix, it's like my little baby, is our branding and our messaging. My marketing team really despise me sometimes, but I'm like, the tone, the colors, the spacing, everything has to be dot on, because that is the first thing people connect with, whether they see us across their phone, in person, across a field. I want them to get that same Robin Cancer Trust feel. So that's really, I think, how we found our tribe. We've been open even in our branding. We're quite often, part of our induction is saying, and we've said this on social media, we're not for everyone, and that's okay. We work with amazing partners in the sector. If someone comes to us and goes, I don't really like swearing and I don't like puns and I don't feel like this is really resonating, we'll be like, that's absolutely fine. Let us find you a charity that we can send you off to that can support you in a way that you feel comfortable with, because it's not about us. We're about supporting our community, whatever their needs. But if we've got a 70-year-old that thinks talking bollocks is the funniest thing ever, then absolutely come and join us. It's not about age. It's just about whether you like what we're putting out there to the world. And if it's not, we'll find someone that's right for you.
So that consistency of message is really important. So it doesn't sound artificial or contrived. It's more ingrained.
Absolutely.
Okay. So no adverts with people in white coats in a lab.
No, not unless we're trying specifically to reach that audience. Again, part of our job is awareness for all. So we have to tone it down for different audiences potentially, but we would always want to keep that general aura of the charity consistent.
Obviously, you've worked in for-profit and now a non-profit. What are the challenges of running a charity and being the founder, almost a figurehead of the charity's mission? How is that difficult for you?
Yeah, I think, so taking it personally, I think the biggest challenge, which maybe isn't talked about that much because I don't know why anyone would talk about this, but again, open book. The biggest part for me was taking a wage. That felt very, very difficult. This is my full-time job. I'm very open about that now, but that was the decision made about 4 years into the charity. I went part-time first and then full-time. And again, that wasn't a decision I made. I have my board of trustees. They did due diligence. They did wage checking and everything and standardization. But that's a really big thing. You set this up not for any of those reasons, but you get to a point where you realize if you don't have enough hours in the day, you can't deliver the impact. So I was working for a for-profit at that point in the maritime and shipping industry. Amazing company, but I was absolutely killing myself working 80, 90 hours, and that wasn't sustainable. So my trustees recognized that, and they said, well, you've got the drive, the passion, you want to do this. Let's look at how we can make this happen. But taking a wage was really difficult. Part of running a charity is not having any ego in it. If I'm not the right person for the job, I will absolutely step aside and let someone else. But you are by default also de facto the head and the voice and the visionary of the charity, which is very odd because you have to drive these forward. So it's sort of balancing those two awkward things. I think taking a wage was the first step, and then being, okay, I actually am the figurehead for this community in this way, whilst being mildly uncomfortable with that, because that's not what you set out to do at any point. You just want to do some good. And quite frankly, that's all I try and do every morning, is just wake up and do some good. It's just got a bit bigger and a bit more impactful. On a charity side, organizational side, it's the same with everyone. We have the same issues. We would call it fundraising, whereas you just call it income generation. Same thing, right? There's some real challenges in the world. We came out of the pandemic. That nearly crippled us as a charity because we haven't diversified our income streams. So we were very community led. Pandemic happened. There was no community fundraising, and we were about 2 months away from closing. And we just rejigged the entire charity in a way that we could digitize, that we could expand and scale to a national level. Redesigned the brand, and just came back out with a campaign that was called, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, you can beep it out, but we just came out with a campaign called We're Fucked. And that was it. Because we kept seeing loads of charities do amazing charity bills, but they're all just like, without your money, we won't survive. And it all felt I was getting inundated with them. And I was like, what are they all ultimately saying? They're saying we're fucked. So we just did a to-camera piece that was just me going, we're fucked. The pandemic fucked us. Give us some money or we won't exist. And it went really well. It was really good. And that sort of saved us. But coming out of that, obviously straight into a cost of living crisis, which has been going on since, that's been really difficult because people's donation patterns are changing. People got rid of regular giving. People don't have enough cash anymore. No one carries cash. So a cashless society causes a massive issue for charities that rely on people dropping money because people don't like tapping money. That's not a thing that we're comfortable with. And again, we've got a younger audience where money is tighter than ever. So income's really difficult, but you just keep diversifying. And online, the younger generations are more comfortable with a transactional approach. So, okay, well, we're not just asking for money anymore. We need to give something in order to receive money. Okay, we can work on e-commerce. That's fine. We're lucky we took over the Colchester half marathon. So that's a massive income generator for us, which is brilliant. Unrestricted funding, which means we can spend it on whatever we need to spend it on. And then we have a lot of restricted funding through grants that, you apply for X, Y, and Z, and you have to spend that money accordingly. And corporate partners have been really good as well. So just keeping up with fundraising and challenging events and just general income generation. It's always the biggest stress, where's your money come? The thing with a not-for-profit is we can't keep too much reserves. The Charities Commission don't like it. So not only have I got my trustees, we have a governing body called the Charities Commission that gives us oversight. So whereas if you're in a for-profit, I suppose you could do whatever you want with your money. You keep huge amounts of reserves, or you could get a loan and expand in that way. The Charity Commission keeps us on a tighter leash. So we're not holding lots of the public's money, which is the right thing to do, but it keeps you cash flow can be a bit of an issue sometimes. When you make money, you have to spend it and keep expanding in a sustainable way. That's that sort of knife edge you're always trying to balance as a not-for-profit, which I don't think a lot of people are aware of.
No, I think probably not. And obviously the pandemic and the cost of living crisis were difficult even for the most robust businesses. But what sort of things did you do to try and diversify? I suppose it was a very sharp lesson in not relying too much on one source. And as you said, you were targeting a younger audience who obviously don't go walking around with tons of coins in their pocket. What sort of innovative ways have you found of trying to make yourself more robust?
So going into the pandemic, it was just me in the charity. Coming out of the pandemic with this campaign that we launched, we raised just enough money for another member of staff. And thankfully, someone I knew who'd worked in the sector for years as a community fundraiser had just become available. And I said to him, we've got 6 months that we can pay you. If at the end of that you haven't made enough money, neither of us will have a job. Do you want to go for it? So it was a real heavy risk. And that risk was calculated in the way that we were struggling. We nearly just closed. We'd made a bit of money and we had to focus on some income generation whilst doing service delivery. This member of staff absolutely smashed it. There was a pickup on community fundraising out of the pandemic. It came back and then it dropped off because of the cost of a living crisis. So in that pickup, we did well, and we expanded our services, and we went from just awareness to awareness, education and support, which was brilliant. Again, made some money, expanded our services. Then we were fortunate in our takeover for the half marathon. So that was an opportunity that presented itself and we took that. It was a huge amount of stress, but you have to invest that time and that money into making an event make money, and it was brilliant. And it's a flagship of the Colchester running community, and it raised £45,000 in profit for us the first year. Last year raised us 55, so again, huge amounts of money for us. And then just diversifying the online income generation, so that's Facebook ads, pushing regular donations and pushing more challenge events. We've had some really successful virtual events. So we did a big ballsy run that raised tens of thousands of pounds for us. So people took on 10, 50 or 100 kilometers in the month of November, and they get a big pair of testicles swinging medal. It was absolutely brilliant. So really it's just looking at how do we do more of those sort of things more regularly. And then we invested in a grants fundraising manager. So that member of staff is absolutely brilliant in picking apart all of our core services, our service delivery and all of our activities out there, and finding amazing funders that will give us the money to sustainably keep those services going. So it's just keep diversifying and diversifying. Like I said, those sort of things that bleed over to corporate partners as well, because obviously they can get involved with the half marathon. They can take on challenge events for us, and they can do general fundraising and partnerships with us as well. So it's just knocking on all the doors all the time, keeping the momentum moving forwards, and just being conscious that any one of those could dry up at any one time, and you just have to pull on the other threads.
Is there a way that you can gauge your success in a sort of real concrete way? I mean, I suppose realistically you haven't been doing this long enough to sort of see some meaningful numbers, but how do you see your sort of success and the impact that you're having? How do you quantify that?
It's a really good question, and something I think all charities work on a lot. For starters, a lot of grant funders want to know that information. What's the impact you're going to have? We're quite lucky in the way that so you can track social stats, right? So awareness online is trackable in that way, in our reach and our impressions. You've got school talks. We can track how many people we're talking to, and we get feedback data from every talk we do. So we can track. We have an amazing questionnaire that we get a percentage of all the audience to fill out. So we get sort of real-time data back from what do they know before? What behavior changes have we proved? So that's an amazing impact stat. When we're out in the community as well, we're tracking absolutely everything that we hand out. So, which sounds mad, but you go out to these major events, but you're counting the paper that you've got. We have systems in place that we know we'd have to count every single bit of paper every single time, but they're in certain amount of blocks, and we can just count how many we've handed out, how many we took, how many we handed out, track things like meaningful interactions and conversations. The one that we can't track, which is always a bit difficult, is that sort of ethereal awareness. Are we having an impact on our people going to the doctors early? That's a really difficult thing, trying to work out with our partners in the NHS how we can track that.
That's probably the one that would interest the man on the street or the woman on the street the most, is whether they have avoided a potentially life-ending disease by your actions, and obviously something that would really validate the effectiveness of what you're doing.
We've started that with our survivor outreach. So we do point of diagnosis resources, and we hand out these free cancer support packs for people that have been diagnosed. So anecdotally talking to people when they get in touch with us and request a Thriver pack. So, how did you hear of us? Were you aware of us before? You can grasp at little bits of data. But the other thing is you never, or rarely, I would say, hear from people that have gone to the doctors because they found something. There is not only the people that have been diagnosed potentially because of you, but also the people that have just gone to the doctors because they found a cyst or they had an issue. We've heard back from people on rare occasions that have said, oh, I went to the doctors because of this, and they picked up this major health issue because of that symptoms that I was getting. So, people diagnosed with different cancers or different disorders because they've seen our information. And that's sort of the anecdotally, everyone knows it. We know it, the charities know it, the survivors know it, the medical staff know it, but it's just quantifying that data is really difficult.
What sort of more shorter term markers are you hoping to hit?
So short term looks like replicating our community engagement managers in 7 regions across the UK that we know are deprived of anyone going out there and doing cancer awareness, replicating our great work in schools, colleges, businesses and universities across those regions, because we only have one shot at getting students aware. You have 95% of all kids in the curriculum. If we can get into the schools when they're there, then we know if we hit all of them, then the next generation grow up with this cancer awareness information. So the short term is replicating those really important on the ground interactions that we know from our data have a huge impact on behavior swings, to getting people more comfortable with talking to their GPs, checking themselves regularly, knowing all the signs and symptoms. And really just continuing to make our offering fully scalable, fully serviceable across the nation, getting our support packs across as many hospitals all across the UK, because we're not sending them out. They just hand out point diagnosis resources, and people come straight to us for the packs so that we can send them out from our hub. Really just then making as many people aware as possible. Our vision is to make every young person in the UK symptoms aware, and that's really the biggest impact we could have.
You're Colchester based at the moment. Whereabouts are you working at the moment? And obviously your aspiration is to become nationwide.
We cover at the moment all of the Essex into London, and we've got some potential grants that will help us scale to 2 more regions, being the Midlands and the North East, which would be massive for us. And again, if we're successful in this funding, which I find out tomorrow, which is very exciting. So by the time this airs, we might have this funding or not.
You'd have to send me the update so I can put it in post credit bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's good news.
Toby called me very sad. No, yeah, it would be brilliant. And then that would also help us centralize a CNS role. So that would be someone that comes in, covers our medical side, helps us really expand those support services and make sure all of our information, everything's absolutely vetted, and really grow that support network would be absolutely brilliant. So yeah, we're sort of expanding at the moment, but it's all dependent, again, on whether we're successful on these huge grant applications. In the short term, we've also got a cancer education video that schools can show themselves. So we're just in the final stages of putting that all together and editing that together. So that's something we can set out nationally, so that at the very least, schools can just sit the students down and go, here's a video, here's a workshop that's created for us, here's some questions and some activities you can do afterwards. So again, just really working on that scalability and just making sure that we've got services for anyone in the way that they need them.
So we're going towards the end of our time. We have a couple of quick questions. So
love it.
Last film or TV show that you watched that you enjoyed?
Oh my goodness. Oh, I just watched Dune 2, which was unbelievable. That was my Father's Day present to myself. So nearly 3 hours of sitting in total darkness and solitude at the end of the night watching that was an absolute touch.
Was that in the cinema or was that on streaming?
No, I missed it in the cinema, so I waited till it was only $4.99 on Amazon, because $13.99 was a bit much for me, even though I really wanted to see it. So yeah, as soon as it dropped in price, I was there.
Good choice. A book that you read that gave you some good advice?
Oh, that's a good question. I am a huge fan of the Daily Stoic, I have to admit. That's got me back into a good reading habit, and I don't think you can go too far wrong learning some lessons from 2,000-3,000 years ago. All the same problems, all the same advice, still applicable today.
Yeah, timeless stuff. And favourite band?
Oh, band or artist?
Band/artist, whichever's more credible.
Do you know what? Someone asked me this recently, and this may be a very basic answer, but I love Macklemore. I just think he has a range of absolute bangers to hits that make me feel stuff, and I'm okay with it. I'm at a time in my life where I'm okay with it. Macklemore. Okay, and what would you have on your birthday as a meal? Good birthday meal. I've got some really annoying dietary requirements, so if I could throw them out the window, cheeky lasagna, love it.
guessing you're lactose intolerant or something.
Lactose and gluten, so it's an absolute nightmare.
So
I think it's probably still achievable, but yeah.
Yeah, and just on the side, what was the pub that you had the meeting in that's no longer there?
V-Bar. It was V-Bar.
V-Bar. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Flashbacks.
Back a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, and I suppose fairly obvious on the next bit, but what's the message that you would like to leave people with? What's the biggest thing that they can do to make the Robbing Cancer Trust mission a success?
Well, biggest thing is go to our website, learn the signs and symptoms of testicular or ovarian. If it's testicular, check yourselves once a month. Just put a little reminder on your phone, hot bath or shower. Everything hangs nice and loosey-goosey. Feel around for 2 minutes and make sure there's no lumps, bumps, hardness, swelling, pain or heaviness. And if you find anything in one that's not in the other, anything not normal for you, go straight to your doctor. And if it's ovarian, be symptoms aware, listen to your body at all times. You know it best, and look out for anything that's persistent, frequent, new or unusual. Again, listen to your body and go straight to your doctor if there's anything abnormal for you.
Fantastic. And what's the best place that people can find out more then?
therobbingcancertrust.org, or you can find us on any of the socials at RCT Charity.
Excellent. Well, Toby Freeman, thank you so much for the time. And I look forward to not only putting a little post credits showcasing your success with the grant application, but following up and hopefully seeing some more success stories from you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it.
Like I said, some really interesting points in there. I find it fascinating to have someone like Toby talk about founder syndrome and the anxiety he's felt about having to take a salary, which I know is a hard subject for many in the charity field. So thank you once again to Toby for that conversation and insight. Now, you may remember that he mentioned a grant that he was hoping to have some good news about. Well, I can reveal that he did indeed, at the day of this recording, get that news that he has got that grant. So congratulations to Toby and everybody at the Robbing Cancer Trust. I know it's going to go a long way in helping with their goal to reach every young person in the UK with this important message. And it really is an important message. Rarely do we get the opportunity to say that something so simple can actually save lives. So as Toby said, be aware of the symptoms, check yourself regularly, and don't be afraid to visit your GP if there's anything out of the ordinary for you. And as Toby says, hopefully their community is one that you'll never have the need for. But if you are looking for a community that can support you in a business sense, or if you want to be on our podcast and tell people in our region about your business and have a community that supports and a place for you to learn and develop as a business owner, then simply join our free community by visiting wearetheweave.co.uk. I've been Adam Roxby, Director of Communications at The Weave, and I will look forward to seeing you in the community.